Remember that glorious day when Riot disabled Gangplank for lore reasons? Well, it might happen again. And it might happen to our favorite Demacian Seneschal. That's right, we're going to talk about League's lore today. So, ever since Riot started tackling League's lore through the new seasonal system, while you can say that the lore slowed down overall, since now we are getting about one story beat per month, you can't really argue that things are not moving forward. In fact, since the start of the Noxian season, this has been the strongest point of the seasonal lore. The story is constantly changing things that are happening in the world, which means that the world feels alive again. It started with LeBlanc looking for a new Darkin weapon. Vladimir then secretly let Katarina assassinate the host of the Darkin weapon, because he was very much afraid of LeBlanc unleashing the Darkin. LeBlanc then used Mordekaiser's former follower Atakan to seek out the Darkin's location. It turns out it is in Ionia, where demons are currently rising because the entire land was damaged by the Noxian invasion. And now... well, now it seems like Xin Zhao might die. Or at least, that is what all the theories around the internet are suggesting. And so, let's dive into all of those. This all came from the latest minigame that became available about 2 weeks ago. It is the arcade fighter, which you don't actually have to play, because if you only want the story, Skin Spotlights uploaded all the story bits on his channel. With that said, you probably might need a quick recap of the story that led us here. And so, essentially, when LeBlanc got her VGU, she also got a story where one of her clones in Demacia witnessed Xin Zhao picking up a seed of the Demacian Silver Birch. This seed then bloomed into the Spirit Blossom, which was odd. Xin Zhao knew that this was only supposed to happen in Ionia. And so he took the blossom and he traveled to Ionia to investigate this oddity. The very important thing to remember here is the fact that it is highly likely that it's not the Demacian tree that blossomed here. It is possible that LeBlanc just swapped the seeds to make Xin Zhao travel to Ionia, which is where she also knew the Darkin would be. Just remember that, okay? Anyway, here in Ionia, Xin Zhao met Kennen and the two got a bit philosophical. Xin Zhao simply realized he doesn't feel at home anywhere. Not in Ionia and not really in Demacia, which is where the second storyline unfolded. Here we learned about Yunara's past. The TLDR of her story is that she was a Kinku who was tasked with protecting a shrine that was concealing a Darkin. Surprisingly, this Darkin doesn't really seem evil. And so together, these two joined forces and they purged all the other Darkin who were plaguing Ionia. And once Ionia was clean, Yunara and the Darkin took the entire shrine and they warped into the spirit realm with it, essentially exiling themselves from the rest of the world. And that's where her story starts colliding with Xin Zhao's story. Because as we can see in the new minigame, hundreds of years later, just as Xin Zhao was meditating with Kennen, the shrine returned back into the physical realm. Because after the events of Arcane, magic was disturbed all across Runeterra, which is what Kennen teased. And after the events of the Noxian invasion, the spirits of Ionia were disturbed specifically. Which means that demons started rising, and so Yunara returned to purge them all. After witnessing these events, Kennen decided to leave to consult with the Kinku Masters, and Xin Zhao decided to stay and fight off the demons himself. Here, Kennen even drops our first foreshadowing. He says that his Demacian steel should serve him well. Now, of course, Demacian steel is made of petricite, which is a material that is especially good at fighting magical things, since petricite can absorb magic. But more importantly, Riot used this line to specifically draw attention to Xin Zhao's weapon. And you'll see why later. And so during the minigame, we fight waves of demons until we meet Yunara. During their encounter, Yunara learns that Xin Zhao knows Kennen, and she learns that Kennen just left to talk to the other Kinku. And so our two heroes are simply left here to fight more demons. On their journey, Xin Zhao noticed that there is a new temple that appeared out of nowhere, which is something Yunara refused to talk about. And that's because this entire temple is supposed to be secret and that is only supposed to be known by the Kinku. This is something that comes back at the very end of the story. And again, it is all important because the Darkin is likely inside that temple. Moving on, eventually our two heroes face against a demon that is pretending to be the Grove Mother, which is a spirit from the ancient Ionian myths. And in League, this is represented by a Morgana's gacha skin. And altogether, this demon pretending to be the Grove Mother is a reference to how the Darkin pretended to be the Kanmei, which are the same Ionian myths. And just like how most demons behave, it seems like this demon is also feasting on emotions. It even references how even though Xin Zhao and Yunara are fighting together, they are both very lonely. Anyway, after we defeat it, Yunara admits that the demon felt familiar. And Xin Zhao agreed that is likely because the demon was a twisted version of the myth. After this, the two continue on their journey and they get to know each other. And once again, the story points at Xin Zhao's spear. Yunara calls out how the spear seems serviceable against the demons. Curious. And so the two keep going, we get more lines explaining their past stories, such as Xin Zhao being a fisherman when he was a child, after which he was an Oxian slave, and then this demon just runs by, which is kinda odd. Truth be told, this one really resembles Atakan, especially how he looked in the later cinematics. But throughout this entire minigame, this demon does not appear again. So either this was cut content, meaning that this demon was supposed to be turned into a boss but Riot didn't have the time, or it is actually supposed to be Atakan, in which case it seems like LeBlanc actually released Atakan after all the interrogations, meaning that she did release him in Ionia in that one comic. I mean, Xin Zhao even points out that it seems like this demon is not fighting alongside all the others, so it is possible that this is all a foreshadowing for a story yet to come. And a part of that foreshadowing is Yunara saying that they will face it when the time comes. Anyway, next we face the demonic pretender again, and again we defeat it. And so Yunara and Xin Zhao get another part where they get to know each other. Here Yunara talks about Master Lao, who is the new shopkeeper on the new ARAM, who also used to be her master. In return, Xin Zhao explains his past in Demacia. In the next part, we finally get to the town near the temple. This should be the same town where Xin Zhao arrived at the very beginning of his comic. And here our two heroes tease that they both have the same problem. Neither of them feels like they belong. Xin Zhao was born in Ionia and then he left, and now he is a stranger in his homeland. And Yunara was gone for so long that her homeland has changed. So both of them are outsiders in Ionia now. Which takes us to the last encounter with the demonic pretender, where we defeat it for good. And that is where the important moment happens. In the final scene, we can see that Xin Zhao broke his spear and he left the tip inside the demon, which hopefully finally destroyed it. After this, the two return to Koshin and they meet Kennen. Kennen is glad to see Xin Zhao alive, but he too points out that it is a shame that Xin Zhao's weapon was broken. He does also have a line where he is surprised to see Yunara again, because the two know each other. But Yunara then urges that she wants to see the current leader of the Kinku, which is Shen. Just remember, those two never met before. But they are all interrupted by a ringing bell that is coming out of Yunara's temple, which is a place that was supposed to be protected by the wards. But those wards were breached. And so this all ends with our heroes running towards the temple. A temple that is being likely invaded by LeBlanc. That is likely where Atakan was headed when he was rushing past them. And that is also likely where the Darkin patron still stands. And what's curious about this the most are the final lines of this story.
Master Kennen, where do these stairs lead?
Nowhere in particular. Why not see for yourself?
Steel yourself, Xin Zhao. Our true test awaits.
That's right! All of this is teasing that something big is heading towards Xin Zhao. And considering the fact that Xin Zhao just broke his weapon, and the fact that LeBlanc is looking for a new host for the Darkin weapon, and the fact that LeBlanc likely made Xin Zhao travel here to Ionia, all the theories are landing on the same spot. It is extremely likely that whatever comes next, Xin Zhao is picking up the Darkin weapon. That's what all the lore nerds are hyped about the most. Though I would also like to highlight this one comment. Because it is true that Ionians also have a special tradition where they mend their weapons using spirit magic. This was a big part of Riven's story in Ionia. She got an entire short story where she learned that her black blade can't be mended with magic. So honestly, it would be cool if Xin Zhao got an Ionian weapon mended with spirit magic. But the thing is, I don't think Xin Zhao has the time to do that since they are all running towards the temple. Which also links to one more thing. Since it is likely that Xin Zhao is going to pick up the glaive, people started connecting the dots and they realized, doesn't that mean that Xin Zhao should be getting a VGU? And yeah, that's exactly what it sounds like. Because that's also exactly what happened to Gangplank during the Burning Tides. That's where he got his VGU too. But the issue here is that when someone picks up a Darkin weapon, the Darkin completely dominates their body. Meaning that if Xin Zhao is getting a VGU based on him picking up a Darkin weapon, that would have to be a complete remake. And you can't really do something like only turning his hand into a Darkin, which is what Riot did with Rast. Not only would that be a trope that already exists in League, but also the reason why it happens to Kayn is because Rast is just so weak, he can't even dominate Kayn's entire body. So normally, the Darkin would have to completely reform Xin Zhao. Which is why it is possible that we are not getting a VGU and that Xin Zhao is staying the same, but he might get a skin. Following the recent events with skins, I would not be surprised. But also, on Reddit, people figured out something else. People realized that the Darkin patron is actually a reasonable being. I mean, he allied with Yunara to purge the other Darkin. So what if Xin Zhao made a deal with the Darkin, and the two just merged, just like what happened with him and Yunara during the war? It is possible that Xin Zhao would remain the same and he would just hold the Darkin weapon. That would be a cool way to give Xin Zhao a VGU without reforming him. And it would also be a way to keep Xin Zhao alive, since Riot might be afraid of just killing their champions. Even though Ambessa is in the game, and she's gone, which means that if Riot is committed enough, yes, Xin Zhao might just die. And if that happens, what a banger ending it would be to Riot's first seasonal lore. The only thing we would be missing at that point is if Riot jokingly disabled Xin Zhao, because people would totally love that joke, just like they did last time.